Hi, welcome to Load Securement Training for Alpine Lumber drivers. This training is a review of the federal regulations regarding cargo securement and will go over Alpine Lumber expectations of our professional drivers. Cargo securement is a constant concern for Alpine Lumber and all commercial vehicle drivers hauling loads on public roads. Improper load securement is the most common citation for Alpine Lumber. Improper load securement can result in fatalities or injury to other drivers, serious damage to other vehicles, and citations and fines for the driver and Alpine Lumber. It's important that you understand load securement and, as a professional driver, you do your best to get it right every time. You're expected to have your cargo secured under all conditions that could reasonably be expected to occur in normal driving. This includes all freight and all equipment carried for vehicle operations. Anything that could come loose and become a projectile while driving. Don't forget to secure your fire extinguishers located in the cab of your vehicle. Secure your tailgates, your ratchet bar, the list goes on. The Department of Transportation, or DOT, load securement rules apply to all commercial motor vehicles, including box trucks. Here's what DOT says. When securing cargo, the use of a tie-down every 10 linear feet or fraction thereof is adequate as long as the aggregate strength of the tie-down is equal to at least half the weight of the article, and the load is secured to prevent it from shifting or falling from the vehicle. Loose hardware and other job-related material must be secured in both the box and the cab of the vehicle. What does this mean? It means you can't use a tie-down rated at 50 pounds on a 110-pound, 10-foot-long object. You'd need at least 2 tie-downs, or you'd need a tie-down rated at 55 pounds, which is half the 110 pounds that the object weighs. Alpine Lumber drivers drove over 2 million miles in 2018, with about 170 drivers. While some drivers travel greater distances than others, the average Alpine Lumber driver will drive around 54 miles per day. In 2018, we made 121,604 deliveries. You, Alpine Lumber drivers, spend a lot of time on mountain roads, city streets, highways, tight residential areas, and in front of the public. You have a responsibility to yourself, to Alpine Lumber, and to the public to ensure your loads are secure. Even though loaders and forklift operators might be doing the work before the load is secured, drivers are expected to know your axle weights, limits on the highways versus back roads, height restrictions. Ultimately, drivers have a huge responsibility as professionals on U.S. roads. For those of you new to Alpine Lumber, we have a safety program called Safety Alerts, and it's helped us to improve our safety. Safety alerts are a way to discuss events that cause injury or property damage throughout the company. We try to determine how we can learn from each other's mistakes and come up with a better way of doing things. During this training, we'll go over several safety alerts related to load securement. If we strive for continuous improvement, even small changes can make big differences. Just like you, Alpine Lumber wants you to go home safe to your families every night. So this first lessons learned comes from Eagle, where the material was loaded by someone other than the driver, and the driver drove off without inspecting his load securement. The material flew off as the driver went through a roundabout not far from the yard. No one was injured, but they had to order new doors because of damage. This cost Alpine Lumber time and money, and probably irritated the customer that they were now on hold for their doors. We were lucky. This could have been a lot worse. DOT requires that lumber and other building material units are placed beside each other and secured using side-to-side tie-downs. If units cannot be placed in direct contact with each other, then you must use blocking or other cargo to prevent units from shifting toward each other. The weight of the cargo must be considered. Overloading any one axle is also dangerous and a potential violation. The securement system is made up of the vehicle structure, securing devices, and blocking or bracing equipment. The securement devices used to secure a truck-mounted forklift must meet the same requirements as the material being hauled. The vehicle structure and anchor points are required to withstand a certain amount of force. In the forward direction, the vehicle structure and anchor points must withstand 0.8 Gs, or 80% of the force of gravity of the cargo weight. A G is the force of Earth's gravity on the mass. So at 5 Gs, the cargo experiences a force equal to 5 times its weight. So the rules state that the vehicle structure and anchor points must be able to withstand forces in the forward direction just slightly less than their weight. If you're hauling 80,000 pounds, your anchor points and vehicle structure must be able to withstand 64,000 pounds in the forward direction when braking. For the same 80,000 pound load, your vehicle must be capable of withstanding 40,000 pounds when turning, changing lanes, accelerating, shifting, or climbing hills. To counteract movement to one side, attach the tie down so it pulls the cargo toward the opposite side of the vehicle. To counteract upward movement, attach tie downs to opposing sides of the cargo. If you have any issues with the anchor points or the structure of the vehicle, you must get it resolved before loading the truck. DOT uses the words secured and immobilized. What does that mean? It means that your cargo is attached and secured in a manner that prevents it becoming loose, unfastening, or releasing while the vehicle is in transit. At Alpine Lumber, we use web slings as tie downs. Tie downs must have the ability to be tightened and in good working order. Web slings must have no knots or obvious damage, no distress, no weakened parts. It must be attached and secured so that it does not become loose or unfastened during transit. The photo on the right was a safety alert. The driver had inspected the strap prior to leaving the yard, and although he admitted that the strap didn't look good, he thought it would hold. When he was strap dumping his material, which is a process where the driver slowly releases the tie down as his material is dumped off the truck, the strap broke and the material hit the customer's property, causing damage. The driver was fortunate that the material didn't fall toward him, which is a possibility when strap dumping. Always ask for new straps if you have the slightest concern. A strap is much cheaper than trying to fix an injured person or customer's property. Web sling tie downs have a working load limit stitched into the strap. The straps we use at Alpine Lumber have a working load limit of 5,400 pounds. If you can't read the working load limit of the strap you're using, it probably needs to be replaced. The minimum working load limit for the system is 50% of the weight of the load. That means each strap is available for 10,800 pounds. But don't push it. Use more straps than you need. We just heard about a driver who thought his strap was bad but would do okay, and then it failed on him. Learn from this. It's important that you take your inspections seriously. These are large, heavy loads, and you have a lot in your hands. Everyone's in a hurry to get on the road, but if you take a few extra minutes up front, it will save you a lot of time and headaches, maybe injuries and lawsuits down the road. Alpine Lumber expects you to be a professional driver. Take a minute to review this damaged web tie-downs diagram. DOT says if a rub rail is available, tie downs and all components of a cargo system must be located inside that rub rail. This is a federal rule. Drivers are required by the Department of Transportation to re-examine their cargo and its load securement devices during the course of transportation, and they must make any necessary adjustments to the cargo or load securement devices, including adding more securement devices. So when do the federal rules say you must inspect the load securement and make changes? First, and obviously, before leaving the yard. Then, within the first 50 miles of travel. Finally, drivers must check the load securement again when one of the 3 following events occurs. Either the driver makes a change of his duty status, or after driving for 3 hours, or after 150 miles, whichever occurs first. For a third safety alert lessons learned, the Alpine Lumber driver was heading westbound on I-76 in heavy traffic. The winds were blowing and the driver was carrying a load that consisted of siding material. A gust of wind caught the end of one piece of siding and tore it off. This broken piece landed on the hood of the pickup behind the Alpine Lumber truck. We're fortunate it wasn't a motorcycle or someone in a convertible with the top down. Adding an extra strap to the load would have taken less time than the time it took to manage the incident, plus the cost of fixing the hood of this truck. There must be 1 strap for units 5 feet or less in length, weighing 1,100 pounds or less, and 2 straps if the unit is 5 feet or less in length, but it weighs more than 1,100 pounds. At Alpine Lumber, you can plan on at least 2 straps for every load. From 5 feet to 10 feet, you must have 2 tie-downs regardless of the weight. The image shown here is 12 feet long, which requires 3 straps. Anything over 10 feet will require a minimum of 3 straps. 2 straps for the first 10 feet and 1 more strap for every additional 10 feet or portion of 10 feet. So an 11-foot item will require 3 straps. A 21-foot item will require 4 straps. If you're stopped by a state trooper, you need to be knowledgeable on the rules for minimum tie-downs, and you need to know the length of your load. In the end, it's best not to argue and just add another strap if requested. If you haven't worked for a lumber company before, know that the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has special rules for lumber and building materials cargo loading. Units must always be placed against each other to prevent movement from side to side. If you cannot place the bundles touching, you must use blocking or dunnage between them. Here are the rules for Alpine Lumber cargo loading box trucks. Doors should be loaded no more than 5 wide in a pyramid shape against the wall of the truck. That is, doors should be layered to form a pyramid shape leaning against the wall. Doors may be loaded as deep as will fit in the truck, so long as it allows for the securement device. Ensure the weight is balanced evenly between the 2 sides of the truck. If the truck is unloaded, leaving doors and trim pack on one side, the doors must be moved to the other side for balance. Straps must not be so tight as to damage the product. Drivers are expected to check straps before leaving to ensure they're tight enough to withstand movement. Helpers are generally on these trucks. If no helper is available and a driver notices he has a heavy load, he must stop and request a helper. Exterior doors are very heavy, and a helper will be required for these loads. As you heard earlier, Alpine Lumber employee owners drive a lot of miles. 20 violations may not seem like a huge deal, but each of them had the potential to result in a serious accident or failure of the load to stay securely on the truck. 18 out-of-service violations means the driver could not continue onto the delivery without first correcting the problem 18 times. If an extra strap had been added in the beginning or the load had been checked in the first 50 miles and corrected then, these drivers wouldn't have gotten the violation. Alpine Lumber wants you to secure your load correctly. Consider every load as if your own families were behind the vehicle that you're driving. Treat every trip as if you're going to pass through a port for a full inspection every time you get in the truck. Alpine Lumber expects you to take responsibility for your truck, your loads, and your deliveries as professional drivers. It's understood that there is pressure on all employee owners to keep work moving and get the job done, but not at the expense of safety. Don't be this guy. No delivery is worth it. You're required to take and pass a load securement test prior to driving on your own. Please review the policy prior to taking the exam. Load securement is serious. Alpine lumber drivers who receive a citation for improper load securement may be subject to disciplinary action. Repeat offenses or negligent cargo securement may be cause for termination, and drivers may be personally responsible for paying any fine associated with the citation. Don't be afraid to talk to your manager or supervisor if you're unsure about a load. Everyone has questions or concerns at some point in their career. We've all had more than enough safety alerts and would like drivers to stop taking unnecessary risks. Talk to a seasoned driver that you can trust to give you some information. You can call me, Lan Berry, the safety manager, for further assistance.